Gotta dig deep and recall the moments that truly left a mark on my soul. I gotta start with my family. Living with them was no walk in the park, let me tell you. Looking back, I see the many. I was just a youngin' back then, barely understanding the world around me, but I felt the weight of all of it on my shoulders. But I wasn't always down in the dumps. I remember when I was a junior in high school when my family moved us to the suburbs. I had been good for a minute, but folks still expected me to act out, to be violent. I admit, I enjoyed being a part-time gangster. After all, I was from the hood. But in the suburbs, I was different. I was considered a genius in the hood, but a rebel in the suburbs. I loved the feeling of going from a school with metal detectors to walking in with no suspicion. People from the hood, they say, never really leave the hood, but I was out. I was gone, man. I was traveling all over the city and then the world. It was a freedom I never thought I'd have. It felt like the weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I went from house parties that ended in gunshots to kicking it with my boys, mudding and drinking Natty Light on a boat. I learned that people are people, no matter where they come from. I was living my best life and can't nobody tell me otherwise. But let me tell you something. When I said that, I knew I was lying to myself. I thought I was free, but I was wrong. I could never step a foot in my house without being belittled. My sister and my mother's voices were always in my head, taunting me, making me feel worthless. Imagine your mother calling you fat, ugly, and worthless. They were always there, lurking, waiting for me to make a mistake. Back when I was just a youngin', I had to learn to take care of myself. Barely 6 years old, I was already doing things most kids don't. I learned to read when I was 2. I learned to cook and did my own laundry by 5 or 6. I was taking care of my household. I was a man before I even knew what a man was. On weekends, when my mom and my sister were off, I cooked dinner for all of us. I was watching Emerald and Bobby Flay before it was popular. I was good pretty fast, but my mom, who couldn't cook herself, got jealous. Next thing I knew, I was getting yelled at and screamed at over the smallest mistakes. No room for errors. They beat me till I was big enough to fight back. They wouldn't stop until I either cried or threatened them, but one day I had enough. I refused to cook for them anymore, and I stopped eating with them. And that's when things went from bad to worse. They started calling me names, making fun of me for hours on end. The words were like daggers piercing my soul. I could hear them from the bedroom, and it was unbearable. I couldn't take it anymore, so I went out and bought a fan. I turned that thing up as loud as it would go, just trying to drown out their voices. But even then, I could still hear them. The words were like poison, seeping into my soul and staining every aspect of my life that seemed to be going halfway decent. As you already know, I couldn't finish high school, but I got my GED and went to community college. I was trying to do right, but trouble always seemed to follow me. To protect my home, I ended up pointing a gun at somebody. They didn't see it that way. More ammo to humiliate me. Word got around, and before I knew it, I dropped out of college. Back to square one, just like that. And you know what they say, right? Tell me who you hang out with, and I'll tell you who you are. Well, I was a lost soul, and I was running with the wrong crowd. Big guys tend to hang with each other. That's when I met Bam Bam. This dude was a beast. He was 22, but he was tall and strong as I was at 17. And he was into all sorts of drugs and prostitution more than I've ever seen in the hood. And me, well, I got mixed up in his business. He made me his driver at first. I was just a young buck, not really understanding the gravity of the situation until Bam Bam got me behind the wheel of his van to go pick up some goods from a new Colombian connect in town. And that's when I saw it. And that's when I saw it, man. 10,000 ecstasy pills just sitting there. I drove that devil's chariot back like an old lady with a cane, trying not to attract any attention. But getting out that life wasn't easy, let me tell you. Never really sold anything, but I was definitely the guy to go to. I left Bam Bam, but I ended up making friends with an illegal immigrant who was tied up with the cartel. At first, I was completely innocent, but we became really good friends and I was introduced to the right people. I didn't want to be involved in anything legal, but I felt like I had to protect my friends. I didn't want them to get hurt, so I went along with it, even though I didn't want to. It was damn near impossible to leave that life behind, but somehow, by the grace of God, I made it out alive. The last time I saw Bam Bam, that poor guy was wearing a wire, trying to set me up. And then I heard he passed away at 33 from a heart attack. I don't think it was an accident. And my immigrant boy, he met his end in a shootout not long after that. It's a damn shame, man. But I'm thankful I made it out alive. And I ain't gonna lie, I deserve some of the stuff that came my way because I was still acting like I ain't know nothing about life. Death wish, I guess. I met this girl. She was a stripper. I fell in love with her, so I tried to protect her, but ended up becoming some kind of pimp for her and her friends. It broke my heart, you know. I couldn't stand watching her do that, so I left. By then, I was already caught up in some mess. I knew I was losing my mind. It felt like the whole world was against me. On my 22nd birthday, I was leaving the club when two other cars tried to pull me off the road. To get away, I crashed into a concrete pillar on the highway at 85 miles per hour. Car was totaled. All I got from that accident was a scratch on my eye. From almost flying through the windshield. I still don't know how I didn't die right then and there. But if I'm being honest with you, I don't know how I'm still alive to this day. Skipping ahead a few years, and I'm back drinking and getting stupid drunk again. I was out there in the streets, running through about 5 red lights. When those red and blue lights start flashing, the cops pulled me over and they hit me with the taser, but it didn't even faze me. That's when I overheard them talking about hanging me, man. I was scared for my life, but somehow, some way, I was able to use my words to talk them down. That experience made me feel like I was untouchable. You know what I'm saying? And what do untouchable people do? More dumb stuff. Years went by, and I started shooting up steroids. I lost around 160 pounds and got swole as hell. Picture this. I'm a 6'3", 275 pound with a six-pack. The people I knew and the connections I had made me a local celebrity in my city. I was getting free food, free drinks, free bottles, everywhere I went. We partied with some of the cheerleaders, the Chiefs, and the Royals on a regular basis. I always had some famous friends, but this was on another level. I was on top of the world, man. We were untouchable. Shoot, even had some cops in my circle. Until that one night that tore us apart. Me and my athlete boys hit the town for a night out. It was perfect. Everyone had a girl who was down to hook up. As usual, we got in the club for free. We had free drinks, bottles, and food, and free world. As we're leaving out of nowhere, the shots start raining down on us. It wasn't my first time in a shootout, but it was my first time I was the target. I ain't backing down now. I walked up close to them fools who were busting shots. An officer behind the wall had his gun aimed straight at my head until he realized who I was. He told me to hide, but I wasn't having it. I had enough. Maybe I'm reckless. Maybe it was the alcohol talking, or maybe it was something else. In the end, one of my boys got hit 2 or 3 times in the chest, but he pulled through. The rest of us walked away without a scratch. Man, my life was all messed up. The world outside was crazy and wild, and inside, I couldn't find a minute of peace. I was still living with my mom in the suburbs while all this was going on. At home, they were doing and saying the worst things you could do or say to a person. The lie about me raping that girl was still haunting me. My mom and my sister just assumed I was guilty, and that was all the excuse they needed to unleash their hate on me for all these years. But I wasn't taking their abuse lying down anymore. I was done trying to prove them wrong. I told them straight up, if they ever disrespected me again, I was going to beat them until they were knocked out. My sister threatened to call the cops on me, but I dared her to try, asking her how the hell she was going to make it to the phone. I ain't proud of what I said, but I was tired, man. They were turning me into a damn monster. And somehow it worked. The insults and mistreatment slowed down a little bit. Yeah, I know it's a cliche, but after I was so lost, I found God. I really wanted to change my life for real. I didn't like the person I had turned into, and I knew it wasn't too late for me to flip the script. The day of my baptism rolled around, and I was hyped to share that moment with my fam. I thought I could get them to love me again, but neither my sister nor my mom showed up or supported me. Instead, I overheard my sister telling my mom, "God forgives you, but we don't." They didn't care about my faith. They didn't care about me. They never did. I couldn't take it anymore, so I screamed at the top of my lungs. I was a virgin when it happened. I was hoping that could put that mess behind us, that they would believe me, that they would show me some love. But instead, they just looked at me and said, nobody would believe you anyways, as if it somehow made their behavior okay. I stuck with them for 3 more years, but I was feeling like I wanted to end it all, to end my life for good. The only thing that kept me going was the thought that they would never get their hands on my insurance money. For years, I was trying to convince my friends and family. They didn't care, and the ones that did left. The last time I saw my sister, I was broke and jobless, and asked her for $3 to go get some hot dogs at the gas station. She pulled the money out and put it back in her purse, but instead of giving me the money, she made me wait 24 hours. By then, I hadn't eaten in 2 days, and I was at my breaking point. I was starting to become what they accused me of. I was starting to think maybe they're right about me. That's when we had our final fight, and she finally admitted everything. That she wanted me to be a killer, like my father, or die. Win-win situation. At that point, I was ready to take her life, the same way she had tried to take mine. I didn't want to be like them, so I knew I had to get out. But she left that night, and I left the next morning. That was 12 years ago. I never looked back.